Well, let's speak now to David Duguid, the Scottish Conservative MP for Banff and Buchan. Morning to you.
Good morning.
One of the trawlers, I believe, that came under attack was from your constituency. What do you make of the pictures that we saw of these skirmishes?
Well, obviously, there was quite dramatic pictures we all saw online, and obviously the day after I first heard of it. When I first heard of it, I just heard there was a bit of a clash, but when you actually see the pictures, it does look a lot more dramatic than when I first heard, certainly. But I was just looking at the video clip again last night, and it very much looks like this big blue Peterhead-based boat is ramming into the French boats. But when you actually look at it, it's actually filmed from the perspective of the French vessel, and it's actually the French vessel that's veering in front of the Peterhead boat. And obviously, because the video is taken from the perspective of the French vessel, it looks like the Peterhead boat is actually moving direction. But when you actually look at it in reference to the vessels behind and the horizon, it's clear that it's actually the French vessels that are getting in the way of the Peterhead boat.
Right, and you've been talking to members of the Whitefish Producers Association, have you? What's their view?
Well, since this came to my attention earlier in the week, I've been in contact with the Scottish fishing industry representatives, DEFRA and the MMO, just to keep abreast of the latest developments, if nothing else. And Mike Park of the Scottish Whitefish Producers Association, who I believe you had on earlier, I just spoke to him earlier this morning, actually. He's still waiting for confirmation that there is going to be a meeting with his French counterparts. But it was encouraging to hear Monsieur Vimar earlier today actually stating that they have no interest in seeing a repeat of the aggression seen earlier this week. So it's encouraging to hear that they are, both sides of the debate are looking to get together to make sure that there's no harm to people or business.
Yeah, it seems to be that this issue of the British and other countries fishing earlier in the waters before the French can begin in October, seems to be the contentious issue. I mean, is there an argument that this could be depleting stocks?
Well, there are different views of the science in question. Clearly, the French have a rule that the scallops are not fished in that area before the 1st of October. But then I've also read elsewhere that it's considered safe to fish for scallops from mid-August onwards. And so I'm not the scientific expert in this regard. I'm just saying that there are different views of the science. But the fact of the matter is that the British boats were there fishing legally, whether you agree with the science or not, they were perfectly within their rights to fish. The French vessels, because of their own rules, were not, and so if they were not there to fish, I can only assume that they were there to cause a disruption, which they clearly succeeded in doing.
Well, if talks do go ahead towards the end of this week, as we understand they may or should, would you like to see something come from those to resolve this situation?
Well, historically, for the last 5 years, there's been what they call common management measures between the fishing organisations, which I think Monsieur Bernard was referring to earlier as well. And these common management measures led to British fishermen restricting themselves to align with the French rules, but in exchange for increased access to French fishing waters elsewhere. Now, that arrangement hasn't been made this year, I believe, because what I've been told is that the French fishing organisations wanted to make that restriction to the smaller vessels, smaller British vessels, less than 15 metres, which in the past they were allowed to fish, but now they wanted to restrict the smaller than 15 metre vessels, but without any additional compensation in return.
Okay, well, we shall see what develops by the end of the week. Thanks very much for speaking to us this morning, David Duguid, the Scottish Conservative MP for Banff and Buchan.